Hi everyone, my name is Matt Jarbo and this is the Mundane Matt channel, and these kind of videos are always tough to make, especially when tragedy has just struck like it did in Sutherland Springs, Texas at a church where a single gunman mowed down 26 people today. It's the fourth largest mass shooting in United States history, and it is coming right off the heels of Las Vegas from a month ago. It's tragic beyond belief. Many children were shot and killed, and it's just a moment in time where we have to stop and try to process how something like this could happen. Now, if you go on social media, you'll come across your typical hot take celebrity making comments like, oh, blame the guns, gun control now. It's a typical leftist talking point. And of course, you'll get the other side of that from the Republicans, and it becomes a politicized event that doesn't really ever benefit anyone, because all people really want is knowledge. People want understanding, and we don't have a motive yet. The police are still looking for that, but I figured by putting together this video, looking at some of the facts that are available, going through some of the information that's available, maybe people out there might have a better understanding as to what's going on. You can still formulate your own opinion any way you want, politicize it any way you want. But my intention here is to just look at what's available, look at what we know, and then discuss it. That being said, in no way am I trying to earn any money on this video. Ads are disabled, so please be fully aware of that before we get into it. But the first thing I want to mention is the internet is a wonderful, destructive place at times and can be very funny if played the right way. Well, every time there's a shooting like this, we always seem to get one particular name thrown out there when there's that rush to identify the perpetrator and be the first one to do it. And it's usually a person by the name of Sam Hyde. If you don't know who he is, definitely look him up and be prepared to laugh at how many times he's been named as the shooter in many of these situations. Like in Las Vegas, there were lots of people out there trying to get the media to claim that it was him, and no one took the bait. However, in this particular case, somebody did. On CNN earlier today, a congressman actually named Sam Hyde as the shooter because he took the bait.
Do you know anything about the attacker?
We don't. It was reported to me that he's actually not from this community. Apparently, his name was released as Sam Hyde. That was the name I was given. We don't know any more details.
Yeah, exactly. Well, do we know any more information? Oh, well, someone told me his name was Sam Hyde. Google it. You know, many situations like this, you want to Google a person's name and find out whether or not this person might actually be the person involved. A simple 2-second search would show you that Sam Hyde is an entertainer who's been associated with Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, and generally tends to pop up in these situations because trolls on the internet like to use him as the first name to throw out there in hopes of baiting somebody like this congressman to drop his name. Why? Because, well, as tragic as it sounds, and I won't shy away from this, it's funny. It's dark, it's twisted, it's macabre, but it's funny. And when you're looking at headlines scrolling across every one of your feeds saying 26 dead, mass shooting, all of this stuff, you try to find the dark humor in it because that's how some people out there cope. That's how I cope. That's how many people who use 4chan and Reddit and the internet cope, by trying to go to the darkest place that they can and find some light there. Unfortunately, it always boils down to the trolling of Sam Hyde. I don't know why. It never ceases to be funny, probably because of how ridiculous it is, how any person out there could be taken by this information. But like I said, when they're trying to rush to get that info is generally when they tend to screw up the most. And with that being said, let's take a quick look here at what's being described as the most collected information source about the shooter himself. And that is this person right here. His name is Devin Kelley. And he just has that soulless look in his eye from a picture posted only a couple days ago on Facebook. This is a guy who shot and killed 26 people in a church, a person who was in fact a previous Bible teacher or Sunday school instructor. I don't know what happened that would cause him to do this, but it's just terrible. It says here that Devin P. Kelley, who was court-martialed from the Air Force, was identified as the gunman who walked into the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas on Sunday morning and murdered at least 26 people, wounding many more in the tiny rural community near San Antonio. The shooter's name was reported through sources by the New York Times and CBS News. The latter gave his name as Devin Patrick Kelley, 26, of New Braunfels, Texas, and said the Air Force court-martial only occurred 3 years ago. Although the motive was not yet clear, the gunman's background includes religious school work. He also liked pages devoted to atheism. The shooter, who is dead, left behind disturbing social media posts, including a Facebook page that showed a rifle, calling it a bad bitch. So this is essentially what's going on here. So I'm going to go through a couple of these facts just so we can get this information. The shooter, who showed off a photo of a rifle on Facebook, once taught Bible school. Now, I don't quite know if this is going to be used as a way to criticize the Christian community out there. I don't know if they're going to look at him and go, oh, he was right-wing, he was pro-Trump or something. I've heard some reports that he has been linked to Antifa. However, at this point, those are in fact unconfirmed. But I'm wondering, just because, he posted a rifle, people are going to assume he's right-wing, and they're going to tie that to his religious identity, or his least religious identity of his past, and use that as a way against him. I mean, right now in our society, almost everything is politicized one way or another. They're going to look at you and go, oh, you like this? This must mean you are this. That's just the world we live in. It's sad. It's scary how quickly that kind of news spreads, but I'm wondering if that's going to be something that comes into play down the road. Now, this is the image in question. He posted this October 29th, just a few days ago, showing off his assault rifle and saying that's she's a bad bitch. Now, I don't know much about guns. I don't know what kind of gun that is. So I'm sure someone in the comments will tell me what it is and what exactly it is capable of. But as far as gun go, that thing looks pretty freaky. I would be intimidated if I saw that walking around in public. It says Kelley's Facebook page has now been deleted, but you can see a screenshot of the weapon he posted above. His profile picture showed two small children, which was a chilling juxtaposition next to the semi-automatic rifle as his cover photo. According to the Daily Beast, Kelley was married, and Kelley's mother-in-law listed a P.O. box in Sutherland Springs as a mailing address. San Antonio police reportedly raided Kelley's home on Sunday evening. He briefly taught at a summer Bible school. Okay, so that's kind of where his connection is, at least to Sutherland Springs. His mother-in-law has a P.O. box there, and then he also taught at a summer Bible school, but it's not saying if that's the one connected to this particular church. Now, the shooter was described as a white male in his 20s from outside San Antonio by Mike Levine, a journalist from ABC News who first reported law enforcement had uncovered a weapon photo on Kelley's Facebook page. Authorities are now scrubbing his social media. On Facebook in recent days, he showed off an AR-15 style looking gun. And that's one of the things that happens too. Every time there's a shooting like this, people will immediately flock to social media to look to see if there's any kind of cues on their pages or on their feeds that would give them any indication as to why this happened. One of the reasons why the Las Vegas shooting was so enigmatic was because he didn't have a social media profile. He wasn't on Facebook. No one could link to anything that he had done recently through that, and that threw a lot of people off. I mean, it's almost comforting, as odd of a term that is to use in this case, it's almost comforting to know that he had a Facebook post or Facebook that had these kind of posts. And it's not to say that, like, you want someone, clearly you want someone to have said something at some point in time to maybe prevent something like this from happening. But then as those of us are trying to cope and process and understand what happened, knowing this information definitely does help. So, and here's him with his with a child in his photo. So this is his header photo, was the gun, and then his photo with this kid. And that, I don't know, to me that seems like, it comes across to me as like edgy for the sake of being edgy. But then again, I own a gun, but I'm not like, huge into the culture. I'm not going to sit there and like, take a promotional photo of my gun and go, ooh yeah, that's not me. Now, people out there who are gun enthusiasts more so than I am, might do that sort of thing. But it has, I guess you could say, a certain connotation that surrounds it to the outside world other than the people that know that person. Now, this is from Texas. He's from the San Antonio area. I once drove through Texas where I saw countless gun racks on the back of back of pickup trucks. So guns in Texas are like fish in water. It goes together. So a person from Texas owning a gun and posting about it on social media is not something that I would view as being out of the norm. It's not something I would do personally, but it's not something I would view as being uncommon given the region where he lives. Now, it says that his LinkedIn page says that he was a VBS aide for VBS at Killingsville FBC, and notes the dates volunteered from June 2013 until June 2013. Volunteer duration 1 month, cause children. Teaching children at ages 4 through 6 at vocational Bible school and helping their minds grow and prosper. However, multiple children are reported among those that have been shot. Kelley's Facebook page also shows that he had liked pages devoted to atheism, as well as those on German Shepherds, Glocks, and karate. And again, this is where we get into like the scrubbing of someone's social media feed. His page is gone, so we can't really go and look to see what else was there. But what people get are screenshots or snapshots, and that gives us this weird look, almost an out of context look, if you will, into someone's life. And that becomes a bit of an issue when trying to understand everything. But even looking here, it's like, oh, he liked the movie Step Brothers. Is someone going to use that to target him? He liked the History Channel. He liked Clash of Clans resources, sure. But if you look here at the groups he was a part of, you have Glock up here, West Haven Academy of Karate, German Shepherd pups on the family farm, German Shepherds. Some people will look at German Shepherds in regards to this and maybe try to tie it to like alt-right fascist sort of thing, because the German Shepherd was there's some iconography there from World War II. He also liked Nancy Fortier's Psychic Medium. Okay. Friendly atheist, atheism, and more. So, I mean, the guy liked the psychic, and he also liked atheists. But I see that, the comment there was, oh, he liked atheists, clearly trying to, again, assign some kind of agenda to him going to a church with a gun and mowing down people while they're, having service. All right. But the psychic aspect right there is one of those things, too, where I have to kind of just look at it and go, oh, that's interesting. Because, I can sit there and understand the mindset that would be associated with trying to label him as being, an evil atheist. Like, I could get where people could be coming from with that. That's generally where people's minds tend to go in these scenarios, is they look at that and they go, oh, okay, that's how it's happening. But at the same time, the psychic medium thing kind of throws me off. It's like, atheists tend to not like psychics. It goes against kind of the purpose, don't you think? Anyway, it says he recently shaved his beard on Facebook. This is from Halloween night. This is just from a couple days ago. I don't know if that was in preparation for this, if he was figuring he was going to be dead by the end of the weekend and he wanted to have a fresh, clean face. I got no idea. He wanted a good photo for people to remember him by. We have no idea about any of this. But his friend here asking, don't you have a beard? And he said, not anymore. Long story. And then another woman here saying, good picture. And it's just your standard Facebook selfie, nothing to write home about, obviously. But it does also, make you wonder, why would he have a change in his beard? He says it's a long story. Just write it up. That'd be nice. I'd like to know. At this point, I'm curious. This whole situation is curious to me. Now, reporter Matt Massey wrote that neighbors said they heard the shooter may have reloaded multiple times. Around 50 people usually at service. Reported that at least 6 helicopters were called in to transport victims. According to CNN, the shooter was killed after a brief chase north into a neighboring Guadalupe County, according to Guadalupe County Sheriff's Office spokesman Robert Murphy. Now, here's the thing with that. And this is what I'm surprised that with this article hasn't talked about yet, is that according to CNBC here, authorities said a civilian with a gun confronted Kelley and chased him away. The gunman fled in a vehicle after the attack and was killed either by a self-inflicted wound or during a confrontation with police. Now, some people online are speculating that the civilian with a gun who confronted him is who might have taken him out. or might have wounded him enough to where he fled and got caught and then decided to kill himself. We don't know. That's some speculation that's going around. So take that absolutely with a grain of salt. But again, that particular statement right there, just that one sentence right there, that will be used to fuel the everyone should have a gun narrative. That will in and of itself become as politicized as the fact that this man used an assault rifle to gun down 26 people, right? We're going to see both sides of this come out. And that's the unfortunate thing here, is that because of the nature of this, because of the mass casualty rate, this is where we're going to be seeing a lot of back and forth about that particular angle, whether a civilian with a gun ended him, or whether or not more stringent gun control is needed to protect this sort of thing from happening yet again. It's just an interesting little tidbit that I just find to be interesting here. So it says here that the gunman, who is from Como County, once wrote that he lived by the Air Force's core values, saying here that the LinkedIn page for the shooter shows that Devin Kelley served in the U.S. Air Force right after high school from 2009 to 2013. According to the New York Times, Kelley is from Como County. His motive and why he targeted the Wilson County Church remains unclear. Como County is located in northeast San Antonio, Texas. The Daily Beast reported that Kelley was a resident of New Braunfels, a suburb of San Antonio. All right. His LinkedIn page also says that under entry for U.S. Air Force, cargo demand and supply distribution, he added basic learning on my contracted job. The page says he attended New Braunfels High School from 2003 to 2009, receiving his diploma. That's interesting. So he started in 2003 and he graduated in 2009. That's 6 years in 6 years in high school. But then he got out of high school and immediately joined the Air Force. Got his diploma. Doesn't say that he got his GED, but that he got his diploma. So I'm wondering how that whole thing played out. I don't know. I don't know. It could have been that he did homeschooling for a while and then went over. I mean, I'm speculating. I have literally no idea. His LinkedIn page also says, I'm a hardworking, dedicated person. I live by the core values of which the Air Force go by. He identified himself as a management consulting professional, and he was CPR certified. That's interesting. I wonder why he would be considered a management consulting professional. I mean, again, these are little things that you learn, the tidbits you learn of someone's life when they scrub through their LinkedIn, their Facebook, their Twitter, so on and so forth. I mean, look at what happened when Randy Stair shot up the store that he worked at, the grocery store he worked at a couple months ago. People went through and they discovered all of these things about him on social media, all of these warning signs that were there that no one ever said anything. And here seems a little bit different, that there wasn't those kind of warning signs, but it's only now in retrospect we look back and we go, was there something here somebody could have seen but never did? Were they too close to it as a whole? Or was there just no sign at all? And that is something that is probably going to be, haunting a lot of people while authorities search for a motive. Now, it does say here that CBS News reported that the suspect is a former Air Force E1 from 2010 to 2014. He received a dishonorable discharge. He was court-martialed in May 2014. Doesn't really say why. We will probably find out through a statement from the Air Force here pretty soon as to why he was dishonorably discharged. But here's the thing to remember about dishonorable discharge, because this is what was brought up in terms of the information. Now, dishonorable discharge in NFA firearms. A dishonorable discharge is based on a general court-martial conviction. This means the conviction is a felony, regardless of what the underlying offense may have been. The convicted felon is banned from possessing a firearm, including Title II firearms, such as a silencer, SBR, SBS, AOW, or machine gun. A person who is convicted of a crime that is punishable by imprisonment for more than 1 year, including a dishonorable discharge, is prohibited from possessing a firearm. A felon who is found guilty of gun possession may serve up to 10 years in prison. If you've been convicted of a felony or a dishonorable discharge, be careful of constructive possession. You could be guilty of being in possession of a firearm if your spouse or another family or household member has a firearm that you could access. And here we've got photos of him on Facebook posting this gun from October 29th as a bad bitch. This would be a violation of that dishonorable discharge. So the question is, did he purchase this gun prior to 2014, whenever he was court-martialed and dishonorably discharged from the military? Or did he acquire this afterward? I mean, the subsequent 3 years afterward, he wouldn't have acquired this legally, simply because there'd be no way for him to do so if he was dishonorably discharged, which makes me ask the question, if he didn't acquire this legally, will the person who sold it to him, because I'm sure they've recovered the gun, they'll recover the serial number, and the serial number will then lead them to whoever registered the firearm, which will be a very bad day for that person, whoever they may be, if that is the case. I have no idea. So it says here that the scene outside the church was heartbreaking, as crying family members of loved ones gathered outside, desperate for information about them and praying. A local hospital has reported receiving multiple victims. The ATF is responding to the scene, as did the FBI. Authorities had said very little in the hour immediately after the shooting because they were detailing with the mass casualty event. However, just before 6 p.m., the governor and other officials held a news conference. Texas Governor Abbott condemned the evil act on Twitter, saying, "Our prayers are with those who were harmed by this evil act. Our thanks to law enforcement for their response. More details from DPS soon." CNN reported that a witness, a cashier at a gas station across the street, said she heard about 20 shots being fired in quick succession while a church service was underway around 11:30 a.m. local time. Well, 26 people are dead. Clearly there's more than 20 rounds that were fired. So, and that's the thing too with witnesses. Their memories sometimes get foggy even in the moments right after the event took place because they're dealing with the traumatic nature of such. So it is one of the problems with eyewitnesses. They're not always the most reliable. I'm not discounting what the cashier said. I'm really pointing out that in some instances, this can be a problem. So it says here that the gunman was dressed in all black and wrote that he did not fear death. And again, this is where I find it to be a little bit weird that he wrote this. He didn't really wrote this. He, on his Facebook page, which oftentimes, very much like eyes, are the window to the soul. You get to see where somebody's at by their postings on social media. And a lot of times these little things, maybe not being a warning at the time, do come across as such after the fact. So it's always hindsight's 20/20 in these cases, which is sad and just tragic. But this is a Mark Twain quote, saying here, social media accounts contained other warnings. His Facebook page contained a quote from Mark Twain about not fearing death, saying, "I do not fear death. I had been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born, and I had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it." Now, the idea there is not like, the mantra of a mass shooter. As far as I can tell, the meaning of this quote is just that we are all matter. We are all energy. We live, we die where we're born. That's just the nature of everything. It's just a quote about that. It's don't fear death because you've already lived before, but enjoy life. Live your life. That's how I take a quote like this. I don't know how he took it, but you can clearly see they're trying to spin it in order to make it appear as if Devin here was, like sending warning signs out into the ether about what he was planning on doing. And then again, it comes back to that politicization of it all. I mispronounced that word, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. So it says here that authorities say the gunman approached the church around 11:20 a.m. He was seen dressed all in black. He started firing at the church. He moved to the right side of the church and continued to fire. Then he went into the church. He was dressed all in black tactical type gear and was wearing a ballistic vest, said authorities in the press conference. Multiple weapons were found in his vehicle, although authorities have not described them. The San Antonio Express News reported that authorities were checking Kelley's residence for explosives. It's not clear what they found. Well, I think if they would have found explosives at his house, or they would have found other booby traps or anything along those lines, the likelihood of him, this is going to sound a bit more macabre and dramatic, the likelihood of him having killed his wife and 2 children before going and doing this would be much higher, I think. That is just my theory, my speculation. I have no way of knowing whether or not his psyche would have had made him do that or not. But we've seen these kind of things enough before to see, well, yes, someone else out there might have, done this sort of thing. And they might have made sure that their home life was scrubbed clean, or that element was taken care of before going and committing this heinous act. Look at Adam Lanza with Sandy Hook. Same concept there. He murdered his mother. He took her guns. He went to the school. He opened fire. And as a result, over 20 children died. So it's not out of the realm of speculation to make that suggestion. So witness accounts agreed on this. The male suspect walked into the church and opened fire. A man in full gear came into the church, unloaded several rounds, and then took off in a vehicle. A KSAT TV reporter said on a live report on Facebook Live, The FBI was at the scene after the tragedy unfolded. Officials say 23 people were found dead inside the church, 2 outside, 1 transported and died later. And that's where you get your 26 casualty report from. 23 people in the church. It's a small church. It's just, those rooms are a rectangle. They're a box, you know? I mean, there's really nowhere to go. You're looking at the podium. You're looking at the pastor. I mean, even the pastor's 14-year-old daughter was there. He was not there, but the pastor's daughter was shot and killed. And that's just, there's no other word for it than tragic, you know? And it's like, again, my purpose of this video is trying to understand as much as we possibly can and discuss issues without going to one side or the other. I'm trying to be as neutral as humanly possible here, but there's no other way to describe it rather than this is an act of pure unadulterated evil. Says here that people on Facebook and Twitter wrote within minutes that a man, possibly with an assault rifle, had shot multiple people. People posted frantic messages on social media about loved ones. Witnesses reported that the man walked into the church around 11:30 a.m. Sunday and opened fire. KSAT TV reported, adding, the church is located on the 500 block of 4th Street in the small South Texas town, about 40 miles east of San Antonio. The recent population figures has the town, well, it says the town only has 362 people. 362 people, now 26 people fewer. That's a decent percentage of the town's population wiped out by one man. That's horrifying. It's insane. We see death on a constant basis in this world. As a person who does this for a full-time job, as a person who goes and looks at these kind of stories, I read about death and the craziness all the time. And I always try to understand the perpetrator. I really do try to understand them. I want to know their motives. I never agree with any of their actions. I'm never trying to publicize their actions, but I try to understand them, I think, to help me process it. But at the end of the day, all we can do is wait for more information to come out and just look for warning signs. But in cases like this, from what I can see, there wasn't really any warning sign to look for. You know, there were signs in that article that they were trying to turn into signs, you could tell. But ultimately, again, as I pointed out, in that man's particular circle, would posting an image of an AR-15-like weapon be completely out of the realm of normal for that particular part of the world? Like I said, Texas and guns go together like water and fish. And that's not a negative against Texas. I'm not insulting anyone or criticizing anyone, but that is a very big part of their culture there. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're going to see people attempt to try to make those connections to further understand it themselves. I do hope we find some motive, some reason why this happened. We're a month outside of Las Vegas, and they're still no closer to finding a motive now than they were then. And I hope that with this particular case, Devin Kelley gives us something to at least look at and go, wow, now we know. I mean, you're still a sadistic son of a bitch. I hope you rot in fucking hell, you piece of ass-ramming garbage cocksucking motherfucker. But we know. And it's the not knowing that's the worst part. So to the victims, families, and everyone, all I can do is offer my heartfelt condolences and just give you a virtual hug from here. And everyone else, just keep on trucking, because that's what we as a society have to do. And if you come across someone like Devin and posts that come across as weird, there's nothing wrong with inquiring about what's going on. There's nothing wrong with saying something if it comes across as being a bit too over the top. Because nowadays you never really know what someone's going to do until they do it. And if we do ignore warning signs, blatant warning signs on social media, then you know, the next tragedy could happen and we could have done something. And that sounds like moral grandstanding at the end. I'm not trying to do that. I don't know the best way to say that particular thing, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. But in the end, just remember that we're all in this together one way or the other. And we just all have to look out for each other and be compassionate and spread love and understanding and truth wherever we can. Anyway, my name is Matt Jarbo. This has been the Mundane Matt channel. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day. Peace out.